Okay? What do you think? What's number 5 in my 7 magic steps to writing? What do we make up of? What are paragraphs made of? You said it, sentences. Sometimes they're 5 sentences. Sometimes they're more, sometimes they're less. We want to check each sentence. And goodness gracious, sentences, complete sentences. We want to vary our sentences as well. We want to maintain the interest of the reader. When you're learning to write a sentence, subject, verb, object, all right? And those are good, safe, easy sentences. But as you develop as a writer, you want to have a little more complex sentences with clauses in them. But you, first of all, want to make sure that what you're saying is a sentence is indeed a sentence and that it makes sense. And again, the only way you can do this is to give yourself a little bit of distance. If you try to do all of this at once, take your hand, take the palm of your hand and put it on the end of your nose. Everybody do this? Let's see it. Come on. Open your eyes and what do you see? What do you see on the palm of your hand? It's pretty blurry. Pull it away from you. And you start to see all these lines. They become clear. That's distance. That's visual distance. But you need the other kind of distance so you can look at this with a clear eye. Okay? If you keep it all up close. So, we're going to look and make sure our sentences are good and that we've got them in the right order. So we have smooth reading. I tell my students all the time, if the reading is hard, then the writing is bad. If I can't figure it out, I write notes in the margin, reader confused. Huh? You know? So, that's one way to tell. If you're confused and you're the writer, then you know you got something going on here. But the other thing is, if you give yourself that distance where you can have a fresh look at it, then you'll see those uncomfortable spots. And we want to ignore those, right? We want to say, oh, it must be okay. I'm not sure what's wrong with it, but it doesn't feel quite right, but it must be okay. Don't do that, because it's never okay. I still do it myself. I'll be sending out a memo to all the faculty in the college. And I'll think, I got to get this out. And I'm so embarrassed. I teach English and I send out something with a mistake in it. You know, how horrible is that? So I've learned to give myself distance. Close down that email. If I send in a proposal for something, I ask a colleague to read it. Peer reviews are good. Okay? But here we are at number 5, sentences. We're checking on good sentences. What are we going to look at next? What would number 6 be? No clue. What do we make up sentences with? What are they made up of? Sentences are made up of? No, that's a sentence. But that's a good guess.
Or words and
Words. Yes, words. Words. 6. I've dried it out. Words. Now, when I grade papers, in the margin I put WW. That means wrong word. That's a serious error. You got the wrong word. Sometimes though I'll put WC for word choice. That means this word's okay, but let's find a better word. Let's find a word that is more precise. If I said his eyes are brown, what does that really tell us? What do you visualize? What if I said his eyes are chocolate? But it's not near as good. It's not near as descriptive. And that's a good example of trying to stretch and fill up the page, right? We don't want to do that. But that's exactly it's a description. But his eyes are chocolate. We know. We say blue. Blue. What about azure? Wouldn't that be a good word? Or if we're going to use the color red, what's another word for the color red that might be more descriptive? It might be better and make the reading more fun.
Infrared.
Infrared?
Yeah.
Oh, well we're going in a whole different direction. I was thinking of sapphire or ruby or crimson, like the crimson tide, all right? But these are the kinds of things, I'm thinking of color words because they're quick to think of, all right? If somebody says he was tall, when you're describing people, what do you mean tall? You know, what might you say? You could give a specific height. He's 6'6". Or you could do something else that might be a little bit more interesting. This is where the writing can get more fun if you allow yourself the time. And it gets much more interesting. Okay, we're at number 6. I heard somebody say something about spelling. What do we have? Where are we going to check for spelling? Where are we going to check for grammar? Where are we going to check for punctuation? That comes number 7. And I call it mechanics. This is what students always want to do first. They want to get over here this content and they want to write the perfect sentence. I've got it at number 7. And I have this in a hierarchy. That means this is first and this is last. That does not mean, however, necessarily, in a true sense of hierarchy, that this is more important and this is less important. Because you can have all this other stuff good and your spelling is lousy and your grammar is lousy and your misplaced commas and all this kind of mess, and you don't have a good paper. But you need to save this to last. And you need to let yourself go, and then you need to get your handbook out, and when you get those funny spots, not sure, look at it. Mechanics. This is what people always think, oh, if I just had my grammar right, if I just got my spelling right, if I just knew when to use a semicolon as opposed to a comma, then I'd be making A's. Well, you do need to know how to do that. But that's not all there is to it. Okay? That's not all there is to it at all. This is another spot, number 7. You have to give yourself, at least I do, you have to give yourself that visual break, that time break, I should say, not the visual break, the time break between number 6 and then come back and check strictly for your grammar, your punctuation. I tell students all the time, we have all these wonderful tools on our computers. Those green lines, those red things, they tell us a lot, but they don't tell us everything. You cannot unplug your brain and just let the computer take over. You've probably experienced that. They don't know the difference between TO, TOO, and TWO. They don't. It's spelled right. Okay? So you must not unplug the brain and let the computer do this part. It will not work. But we do have the help of the computer, and I believe in using it. I'm not naturally a good speller. I've had to work at learning to be a good speller. When I was in college, back in the dark ages, I had to make lists of words I frequently misspelled. And I had to keep it close. And one of the things about being a better writer, you don't have to be an excellent writer to get by in this world. We know that. But you need to be a competent writer. You need to be able to have the confidence to write a letter of complaint if somebody's done you wrong. If you have children and you want to write a note to your child's teacher, You want to be, not look like a fool, right? Okay. So learn about your own weaknesses. If your weakness is subject-verb agreement, know that and be aware of it. And then you'll have to put a little more time and effort in making sure your subjects and verbs agree. Like I had to put more time in making sure that my papers came out with correctly spelled words in them. Okay? I used to teach business writing, and I would have the head of personnel for the state come and talk to my business students about how they eliminated their applications, because that was what they did first. These we don't want to read. These we don't want to interview. What do you think was the first thing they did to eliminate their applications? Misspelled word in the letter of application. Now it would be delete. Then it was recycle. We're not going to call this person. So these things are important. It's all important, and it's kind of juggling and managing your time, as you all know. Yeah, but now that you know how to write perfectly, won't their lives be better for it?